Happy Monday, degenerates. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. It's your boy Clint. I'm here. I got my voice back. I can actually say things to you now. We are 100% kicking the tires, baby. I am so pumped to be back here talking fights with you all. It feels like it's been an eternity. It's only been 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, your boy came down with something bad. My throat was all jacked up. I couldn't talk right, and everything hurt. It was all scratchy. So I had to throw up the white flag. I didn't do the total takedown. I didn't do the undefeated post-weigh-in show, and I felt empty inside. It felt wrong not to bring you the rest of the content following my usual weekly schedule. And then I thought, you know what? Even though it's an off week, we don't have a whole lot going on. I'm going to do a PFL card. I'm going to actually jump on, put in the work, break down the PFL. We'll make up it. No. I wasn't even close to being ready to go. In fact, I was worse that week. So I was all pumped up to actually have something to talk about on a break week and be able to do a full podcast. Didn't happen. Here we are. I'm back. We got UFC Austin to talk about, and we are first off, what the heck happened while I was gone? Okay. It seems like anytime the MMA space has any kind of breathing room whatsoever, we lose our minds. I don't know what it is, but the sanity of MMA fighters, fans, and promoters, it's held together with Scotch tape. I mean, not even duct tape. Like, we are barely functioning human beings, fans of the sport, mixed martial arts. But in the couple of weeks while I've been gone, what the heck? So Ian Gary apparently has been seduced by someone who wrote a book on how to attract young, successful men, and her ex-husband is his nutritionist. I guess they're going to cut him out of the picture after he doesn't get the UFC title or something along those lines. Sean Strickland has saved somebody by holding a man hostage with a gun in his front yard after fleeing the scene. Johnny Walker might be a pedo. Like, what is happening? We need to get back to the fights, people. This is why we keep MMA fighters busy, because when you don't keep them busy, shit goes wrong. So we have got the whole of UFC Austin to talk about with you all now. I am beyond pumped. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to gamble. We got the chat back in full-fledged motion here. We got my guy Dream coming in here early, bright and early, 8 a.m. to be the first one in the comments. And not shortly thereafter, Mushroom, my guy, popping in at 9 o'clock saying, what is up, everybody? We've also got Christopher Patrick in the house. Thank you very much. I'm feeling a whole lot better. As you can see, rocking the Vikings jersey. There's some foot and ball type of game going on later on. I'll have to try to wrap the podcast at a decent hour so I can watch my Vikings go ahead and hopefully take care of business here, because every game for the rest of the season is a must-win game for us right now. But without further ado, I've brought a phenomenal guest, one of the favorites here on the show, one of the sharpest guys we know, none other than our guy, Lucrative MMA. James is going to break down this card with us. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, brother. You know, it's 12 p.m. here in New Zealand. I think it's a little bit later for you. And I was feeling a little bit tired this morning, a little bit lethargic. We got a good workout in. You know, post-workout, I'm usually feeling a little bit tired before I rev up again. But your energy, bro, is perked me up a little bit, you know. You always come with that energy, so now I'm ready even more than before to smash it. We got a few weeks left of the UFC, a few weeks left of this calendar year. Can't believe it's gone so fast. I say that every year. So does every other person on this planet. It's like every single year just goes faster and faster. But we've still got a few opportunities to make money, you know. So I want to close out the year strong because it's been a really good year. So I don't want to end the year with a bad taste in my mouth, losing multiple events in a row. You never know with gambling. You know, it's up and down. But I'm feeling good about this card. It's a tough card, but I'm feeling good about the spots
It
I
is.
do have. And I'll share it with you later today, man. So yeah, thanks for having me on as always. And I'm ready to help people make some money.
Hell yeah, man. Appreciate it always. I know, it's really cool, the benefits of technology these days. My guy's on the other side of the planet. So appreciate you staying up late with us here to do these breakdowns. And I'm right there with you, man. Best gambling year for me in my entire lifetime. Just knocking on the door of that 100 units. Every single time I get over that hump, I have a bad week. I give a couple back and I dip right back under it. So I've got 3 events, man. 3 events to lock it in and make sure I've got that 100 unit mark solid for 2023. And that's my goal. Obviously, we're still a couple units short, so I've got some work to do. I'm right there with you though. This is a really fun card. It's super interesting and it is by no means easy. So I'm glad you and I get to talk through some of these spots. Want to go ahead and just shout everybody out one more time. We've already got 50 live viewers here on the show. Do us a favor, hit the like button, let the algorithm know that we're back because we take a week off. YouTube forgets all about me. If I take a week off, they forget I exist, and we got to let everybody know that the Die Hard MMA podcast is back up and running. You guys know my guy, James. If you're on social media, give him a follow, Lucrative MMA. We're going to go ahead and break down this card here for you. First fight of the night, my guy. We've got Jamey-Lyn Horth taking on Veronica Hardy, formerly Veronica Macedo. And I do already have action on this first fight of the night, man. I love me some Veronica Hardy. I always have. I always will. Years and years ago when she first made her UFC debut, I tagged her as my girl. You get those fighters that you just kind of ride or die with sometimes. And Veronica was one of the ones that I had kind of put in that category for me. Didn't turn out too well, man. She's 7-4-1 and was incredibly disappointing in her original UFC run. She went on a 1-3 type of skid here, and it was not good. Got tapped out by Jillian Robertson, lost a decision to Andrea Lee. Then she got beat up by Bea Malecki. That one aged horrifically. And I see a lot of people trying to fade her still. And I put her career into context the last time we broke down her fight against Juliana Miller, who, by the way, she beat the brakes off of as a plus 300 underdog. This girl had a really, really tough go of it. She's a BJJ black belt. She's got good boxing, tight hands. She's very fast, and her ability to scramble is awesome. She's not just the type that'll get caught on her back. She will force scrambles and make you move and make you work. It's very, very difficult to hold her down on the ground, and that ends up being kind of the path to victory for a lot of her opponents, is be bigger than her, be stronger than her, get on top of her, and try to grind out some clock. She makes that very difficult. But what happened with her is she started having physical issues. She started having health problems, and she actually was not able to cut weight the way that she should have been. So rather than taking time off, going to see the doctor, getting done what she needs done so she can fight properly, she's a young fighter, and we know these people are not always in the best of mind states. She just started taking fights up a weight class. She said, screw it, I'll work harder, I'll try, I'll just crash my head into this thing and try and break through. So she fights up a weight class. Doesn't go well. Tries the next one, couldn't cut weight again, fights up another weight class. Didn't go well. So now she's finally taken time off, hit the reset button, married one of the best damn analysts in the game in our guy Dan Hardy, and she's come back 100%, full force, good game plans, healthy, and I think that makes all the difference in the world. I think she's a very underrated fighter, and people look at her record and they look at her history, and you kind of have to throw some of that out with her, because she was never 100% during that initial run. Now we finally get to see what she's truly capable of. And I thought she was close to finishing Juliana Miller a couple times in that fight. She showed off some excellent submission defense. She is going to be a tough, scrappy fighter to get out of there. And Jamey-Lyn Horth, 6-0, 33 years old. She's light on the experience side of things. And yes, she made her UFC debut and she did beat Haley Cowan. But I'll be honest with you, James, I think Haley Cowan's a bum. I don't know why they're trying to make her a thing. She's not very good. They brought this girl in to lose to her in that spot. She pulls off the upset after Haley Cowan kind of slows down after the first round there in that fight. She's good. I don't have a problem with Jamey-Lyn Horth. I don't have an issue with her, but I really feel like she's middle of the road at everything. She's slow. Veronica Hardy's going to have a big speed advantage here. The one path to victory that I would be a little concerned about is Jamey-Lyn Horth laying on her for 15 minutes. And if Veronica can't get out from under her or catch a sub, maybe she loses a decision. But outside of that, I believe she's the more skilled fighter in literally every aspect of the game. Let me know your thoughts on this one, man. I've already got a bet on my girl, Veronica Hardy. I wish I had blindly taken it when it was plus money like 2 weeks ago, but I had to do my due diligence first, and I got me a minus 105 instead of a plus 120. So what do you like here, man? What do you think?
It's a closely contested matchup. I'll say that initially, right? I don't think anyone's going to be... I don't think any fighter is drastically better skilled than the other fighter, but I do side with Veronica Macedo in this fight. And the reason for that is because, like you said, she's got a speed advantage, in my opinion. She's got a technical striking advantage. She's a good Taekwondo fighter. She is good at Taekwondo. She's very well trained in that martial art. And she actually adapts it to MMA quite well. You know, she has very good footwork. She has darting in and out strikes, which a lot of people can't get a beat of, especially if they're not high-level strikers. You know, these fighters that can dart in and out and throw 5-6 punch combinations and then circle away. If you're not used to that, and if you're not a high-level striker yourself, you're going to get eaten up by that. And we saw that in the Juliana Miller fight. You know, she got eaten up by that. Now, obviously, Veronica Hardy, she's a Taekwondo fighter, so her grappling is not up to par. You know, 9 times out of 10, when you get a fighter in the UFC, they're good at one thing and not so good at the other. You know, and nowadays, we're getting these fighters that are just good at everything. But these girls are from the old crop. You know, they're not young fighters, so she has some deficiency in the grappling department. So that is a little bit of a worry. You know, if Horth gets on top of her, like you said, it could get ugly. I don't think Hardy is very good from bottom. Anytime we've seen it in the UFC, she hasn't looked good. But she looked very improved last time out in the wrestling and grappling defense. Not so much on the ground, because we didn't see her. We saw her on top position because she got about 8 takedowns. She was just taking the Juliana Miller down with the trip takedown every single time, which was very telling for me because I thought that she would be the much weaker fighter in that fight, but she was actually the much stronger fighter. So that was very, very impressive in that regard. And I think it won her the fight. You know, the striking, she was always going to win, but her being the stronger fighter in the clinch and the grappling completely won her that fight, right? In the Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Cowan fight, she was actually, you know, she was quite on par in terms of the strength. You know, I'd say Cowan was maybe a little bit stronger than her in the clinch battles. So it's kind of hard for me to determine who's going to be stronger in the clinch battles. I kind of feel like Horth will be, but Hardy has that tenacity to where she may be able to reverse position and just disengage, right? Which she did against Juliana Miller a lot until she found that she could just take down her easily. So I think the fight's going to be won in the clinch. You know, if Horth is able to dominate the clinch and keep getting the fight to the clinch, she's going to win the fight, in my opinion. If Hardy's going to be able to disengage, she's going to win on the feet. You know, that Horth fight didn't really impress me in a contender series. A very, very close fight, very competitive fight. I know she won unanimously, but she won the first round. She lost the second round clear on all 3 judges' scorecards. And the last round, she was actually losing. And then she won the last 2 minutes to win the round. So it's a very, very closely contested fight. I don't think that has much to do with this fight at the end of the day. It's different stylistic matchups. But yeah, man, I think overall, I think Hardy should be the favorite. She's a better striker. I think her footwork and her ability to dart in and out and control range is going to cause a lot of problems for Horth, at least early. I think Horth, maybe she can land some big shots here and there. You know, it is possible. But I think for the most part, she's going to lose the striking. And it's really going to be determined by the clinch. And I feel like Hardy's going to be able to pull off the clinch exchanges and win a 15-minute decision. She needs to be careful if she gets taken down. She makes some sloppy mistakes on the ground, even from top position. She dominated the wrestling in her last fight, and she still found herself in about 7 submissions. You know, arm bars, knee bars. A better fighter will either reverse and sweep her or finish her in those positions. So she's already been finished on the ground before. She needs to be careful in those positions. But yeah, I'm going to side with Veronica Hardy in this fight to get the 15-minute decision.
I like it, man. I usually like to turn the story around up on its head and look for these women's finishing props and things like that. I don't think we can do that here. I think Horth is durable enough. She's tough enough that she'll stay safe. She's not going to give up some kind of submission or anything. I love the way Veronica Hardy is active when she gets on top. And I think that's what causes a lot of those opportunities for her opponent to try to grab onto something, is because of how insanely aggressive she is with her ground and pound and things like that. But I do think that size and physicality difference will be enough that she probably doesn't get Horth out of there. I'm with you. I think it's a 15-minute fight. I think it goes the distance. I like Veronica Hardy on the money line, and I agree. I think it's a decision on this one.
I would just say, add on to that, I feel like if Hardy wins, it's probably a decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Horth got her out of there if she does win, because as I said, Hardy just makes so many mistakes on the mat, so I just wanted to put my thoughts on that regard on the under out there.
Absolutely. No, totally makes sense. We have seen, the 6 fights that she does have, she's been very opportunistic with her finishing ability. I'm kind of banking on the Veronica Hardy submission defense that we've seen. She gets in bad positions, but she knows what she's doing and she scrambles out of them. She could get caught. Definitely could get caught. So if there's going to be a finish, you're right. It's probably from the Horth side in this case. Shout out.
One more thing about this fight, if you don't mind, is that we didn't mention it. So she took a long break, Veronica Macedo, right? She came back as a new fighter, Veronica Hardy, right? So she transformed from Veronica Macedo to Veronica Hardy because she married Dan Hardy. And Dan Hardy gets shit on a lot, right? Because I don't know why. People just like to shit on people in the public eye for whatever reason, right? If you're in the public eye, you're going to get shit on. So people like to shit on him because of certain things he said or done. But the guy is a very, very good analyst. He knows what MMA is. He's been around MMA his entire life. He was a pro MMA fighter. The guy is smart when it comes to MMA. He knows intricate details of the sport. And I don't think that we can understate living with someone like Dan Hardy 24/7. They train together. They roll together. He is her coach. They live together. Like, Dan Hardy's retired now, right? So he's kind of putting all his effort into Veronica Hardy. I think Dan might come back, but he's putting all his effort into his woman. So I don't think that can be understated, man. The improvements we saw in her last fight, I can expect them to keep on happening because of the relationship she's in. I just wanted to mention that because I think having Dan Hardy by your side is a massive plus in MMA.
I completely agree. And one thing that I did mention last time, I'm glad you brought that up, James, because I need to mention it again. The Hardy Revenge Tour. Like, Dan Hardy gets shit on, and the UFC did everything they could to discredit the man and paint him in a bad light before they shipped him off and kicked him out of the organization. Now he's an analyst for a rival. His wife is still employed by the UFC. The UFC is doing everything they can to bury the Hardys. Dan is making sure the Hardy Revenge Tour lives on. He's not going to let his wife make some mistake against an opponent who's subpar. Maybe when she climbs a little higher in the ranks and is fighting tougher competition, I think maybe we see a ceiling at that point. But as long as they're being smart with the matchmaking, accepting fights like the one she has on Saturday, I think Dan Hardy is going to have his woman very well prepared for this fight. And as long as we see this kind of trajectory for her, I'm with you. I'm going to keep riding Veronica Hardy to the bank until we see a reason that we probably shouldn't. I think one of the takes I've seen on this one, and we can move on after this. We spent way too much time on the first fight of the night. One of the takes I've seen on this one is that people are bandwagoning on because of how she beat Juliana Miller. And I'm sorry, that doesn't compute for me. You know what I mean? I don't think there's enough Juliana Miller fans out there. She had a surprising performance to some people in that case. She never should have been the dog. That was a gift. She was plus 300, and she should have been favored going into that fight. People simply do not understand what Veronica Hardy is capable of at this point by looking at her record in her last couple of fights. Like I said at the top of the breakdown, throw it out. You've got a completely different human being at this point, backed by the brain of Dan Hardy. It's different. Anyway, we can drop it off at that because we got a whole bunch more action to talk about, my guy. Second fight of the night. We've got Wellington Turman taking on Jared Gooden. And I'm at a tough crossroads, man. I'm having a hard time with this one because early on in Wellington Turman's career, I was a hater. I looked at this kid and I went, he's not very good. He's chinny. He's just a grappler. I did everything I could to fade this guy. I wanted to be on the other side of him. And now he's dropped a weight class. He's fighting down at 170, where frankly, he looks phenomenal and strong at his new weight class. He's training at Teixeira MMA. He's basically discount Glover. Like, if you look at the skill set of Glover Teixeira, he's got the same exact thing, just, one notch under. He's learning from guys like Alex Pereira. But now that I want to bet on him because of these circumstances. He's on an 0-2 run. He dropped the fight against Andre Petrowski. He dropped the fight against Randy Brown, showed very well in both of those fights, but couldn't quite get across the finish line. Here he gets Jared Night Train Gooden, and I'm a big fan of Jared Gooden. You know, shout out to our guy Dan Levy from Half the Battle. This is his boy. Like, he knows Jared on a personal level, has been friends with him for a long time, and because of that, I've kind of jumped on board cheering for the man, and I was real excited for him to get a shot back in the UFC. But of course, it's a short notice fill-in opportunity against a beast and a guy like Carlston Harris. That's who they throw him to in the first place. And it just seems like he's another one of these fighters that we have to put in the almost category. You know what I mean? He's got all the skills. He's a BJJ brown belt. He's a solid striker. He rolls really well. He's pretty damn durable. He does get wobbled. He does get hurt, but he manages to fight his way through, unless, of course, he's fighting Impa Kasangane. And I like everything about Jared Gooden. He always is in very close, very competitive fights, and it leads me to want to back him. So I've got two guys here that I have a history of wanting to play on, and neither of them has had a very solid ROI for me because of that. So I am struggling here on this one a little bit, James. I'll be honest with you. We've got Wellington Turman, who's a big favorite here in this spot, and that's not a position I really want to be in. Sorry, guys, the throat's coming back to attack me. I'm going to need to get some water during this breakdown, apparently. Minus 200 for Wellington Turman. It's a little pricey for me, man. I would love to hear your thoughts on this fight. I think it's one where I'm going to have to pick the favorite and take the coward's way out and probably not bet it. That's probably my reaction here to this fight, and just sit back and take some notes. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's funny because, you know, I had a lot to say about the Hardy fight, but I don't have a lot to say about this fight. And the reason is because Jared Gooden doesn't offer much in MMA apart from some power and some flashy hands down boxing. So most of the time he's going to get taken down or outworked by fighters. The thing about Wellington Turman is that he can be cracked by this hands down style. I don't know if his chin is 100% good. I mean, it hasn't reared its ugly head for a while, but we've seen he's been finished on the ground in round one before against Bruno Silva. I know he hits hard, but he was dominating the fight, got finished in round one. Somehow he managed to go to a split with Sam Alvey. And the other time his chin reared his ugly head was in round one against power puncher Andrew Sanchez. He got knocked unconscious, right? So there's just something about Wellington Turman that I don't like. He's got a lot of skills. He's getting better as a striker. We see this. His kicks are looking quite good now. His range control is looking decent. He's a good grappler. But when does he really put on a 50-minute performance where he showcases his skills and looks great? I'd say arguably in his last fight, which he lost against Randy Brown, he actually looked a lot better in that loss than a lot of his wins, like the Sam Alvey fight, or he doesn't have a lot of wins in the UFC, and the guy's lost many
best full performance he's had so far. Absolutely.
So that's a good sign because this is his last fight. But it's just hard for me to ever back Turman. I do think in this spot he has all the skills to win. I think he can get his grappling going, which he hasn't been able to do in a lot of fights, because he's been fighting fighters who have negated that for whatever reason. Petrowski is a grappler through and through. You're not really going to grapple him. Randy Brown is a good anti-grappler. You know, he's been in some problems on the ground, but, you know, he's a tall, lanky guy, very good striker. It's tough to deal with. I do think in this spot, he's going to have a chance to get his grappling going, where he hasn't been able to do that recently. So we may see a much better performance from him because of that. I also think striking-wise, he can win the striking here. I think that he's the much better fighter overall. It's just hard for me to trust him because of the chin issue, because of the potential fight IQ issue, and because of the historics in the UFC where he hasn't had good performances. He just hasn't. No matter whether you see the skills there, it doesn't really matter. If you have the skills but you don't put on the performances with those skills, you can't really get behind these fighters with a bet. We've seen it time and time again where fighters, you know, they seem to have all the skills and people always bet on them because of this, but they just don't put it together, whether the fight IQ is not there or whatever it may be. They just don't put these performances together, and that's what Wellington Turman falls into. I do think he wins the fight. I think he wins the fight cleanly, actually. I think he's got too many advantages to lose this fight outside of a KO. You know, Dirty Reg 22, shout out to you in the chat. You said that Gooden's probably KO or bust in this fight. I agree. I think if Gooden doesn't get a KO, he's not going to win this fight. Gooden decision, I just can't see it happening. I really can't. So I like Wellington Turman in this spot. It's tough for me to back him where he's at, but if the line gets bet down, I would consider a play on a favorite line of Wellington Turman. I think he wins the fight via submission or decision in this spot. I'm going back and forth between the two. Probably decision.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning with you on the decision side of things, man. One thing with Jared Gooden, you watch his last fight with Carlston Harris, and one thing that really bothered me was he would be more than willing to lock down in bottom half guard. He never gave himself an opportunity to get up. He never worked up to his feet. He never tried to scramble for a better position. He would go lockdown where you use it, people who don't do, grappling jujitsu defensively. He was using both of his legs to essentially tie down the one leg of his opponent between his legs. And it makes it impossible to move. It's basically praying for a referee stand up. You can mitigate damage. You're not going to have a whole lot coming at you, but there's no escape from there. There's no getting back to your feet from there. You're using both of your limbs to make sure your opponent can't move. And that's something that really bugged me. He's got a 68% takedown defense, which isn't awful, but it seems like that's kind of been the weakness in his game at the UFC level for Jared Gooden. And like you mentioned, if Wellington Turman wants to come out, put his singlet on, get the grappling going, I'm with you. I think it's a decision. I don't know that he necessarily submits him, but I could see this being a guy that he could outpower and outmaneuver and kind of wet blanket his way to a 15-minute win, which he desperately needs at this point on that 0-2 skid. So we're on the same page there. I think we like the favorite here, but I just don't like the price, man. I'm with you. If people come in and bet this thing down and I could get like a -160, a -150 all day, we'll take a stab here on Wellington Turman, but we'll see where that line goes. Real quick, I want to shout out new member here, Sal. Thank you very much for becoming a member here at Pub Sports Radio, folks. If you want to jump in the chat, be part of the discussion here for this fight night, consider becoming a member here at Pub Sports Radio. We're bringing you quality content for free 24/7. It's $4.99 a month. It's really not that bad. If you want to jump in, chat with us, and support Pub, we'd very much appreciate you and love having you, of course. Next fight up, we've got Ihor Potieria taking on Rodolfo Bellato and Bellato. Sorry about that. There's no R in there. Now with Ihor, James, this guy, so he comes to the UFC and he's just straight up meme material, man. He's this long, lanky ass striker, plays the outside. He'll dive in quick. He seems like he's got some serious pop in his hands, but he is the glassiest glass cannon you'll ever see. 9 wins by KO. 3 losses by KO. He got knocked out clean by my guy, Nikolai Negumereanu, in his UFC debut coming off Contender Series. His only win is over Mauricio Shogun Rua, busted ancient Rua, who, in my mind, the UFC probably was trying to let ride off into the sunset for his retirement fight over in Brazil. They gave him a super chinny young up-and-comer that they probably view as a bit of a throwaway fighter, and Rua couldn't quite get the job done. So he's 1-2 here in the UFC, and he's a violence machine. You look back over the course of his record, a lot of really quick, really early round 1 finishes against very suspect competition. 0-0, 5-2, 1-9, 5-6, 0-0. You've got a lot of really bad records in here on this guy. And now he comes up and he's been cracked by Carlos Ulberg, Nikolai Negumereanu, and like I mentioned, his lone win over the retired Mauricio Shogun Rua. The UFC is trying to feed some real prospects, it looks like here. You've got his opponent, Rodolfo, trains out of Team Nogueira, a respected team, obviously the Nogueira brothers, UFC veterans themselves. He's coming off Dana White's Contender Series, and my Dana White's Contender Series fade angle, which I started hot and heavy on and have since really cooled off on, would have me blindly betting Ihor Potieria here this week, but I can't do it, James. I can't do it. This guy, Rodolfo's got 2 losses, both by KO. And you might think that's a little suspect, but they both came at the hands of Vitor Petrino, who we now know is an absolute monster. 10-0, undefeated. This guy's making waves already for himself here in the UFC. We're cashing beautiful KO prop tickets on him against Modestas Bukauskas, but that's who they're matching Ihor up with. I really think this is going to be a situation of almost who lands first, and I got to rely on the guy with better durability. I think that Rodolfo has learned his lesson. He charged in twice, hot and heavy, trying to get the win back over Vitor back on Contender Series. It cost him. He since has slowed down a little bit, and in his second stint on Contender Series, he finished his man in round 2 because he really took his time. He focused on the leg kicks. He focused on his head movement. He rolled a lot with the punches, waited for the opportunities to open and come to him. And if he just takes that same approach on Ihor, I don't think Ihor can take the punch. And that's really all it comes down to. I don't like the minus 350 price tag. Those always make me feel a little gross, but I can't really argue against it. Ihor is going to be round 1 or bust in this spot. And I'm just going to say the favorite probably doesn't get banked early. What do you make of this one, man?
I think the line's wide.
Ooh.
It's minus 450. So this happens all the time, Clint, right? They win on Dana White's Contender Series, sometimes as an underdog. And shout out to Bellato for doing that, because I bet on him as an underdog, plus 250 or plus 200 in that fight. Crazy line. I also bet on the over, which was like plus 160, plus 170. So he did me a good one in that fight, right? But now he's gone from plus 200 to minus 450. That was a good stylistic matchup for him because the guy was fighting a wrestler, a grappler for the most part, and Bellato's got decent takedown defense. He's a very big guy, and we saw in that fight he was the better striker. In this fight, he's the better fighter again. Now I'm not denying that he's the much better wrestler. He has the much better cardio. He's the much better grappler. He's the much better striker. He's better at every aspect of MMA, but his chin's up in the air. He gets hit in almost every fight I've ever watched him. All the tape I've watched, this guy gets cracked, right? Sometimes he wobbles, sometimes he doesn't, but he always gets cracked. If there's one thing that Ihor can do, it is crack. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ihor cracks the chin of Rodolfo in this fight. I would be surprised if he wins a decision. I'd be shocked, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wins by knockout at all. So with the dynamic of the strikes, with the in and out bouncy movement that Ihor employs early on in fights before he gets tired after 4 or 5 minutes, that causes problems for some of his opponents. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is enough to touch the chin of Bellato. And up at this weight class, we know it only takes one. And Ihor does have power, so it definitely only takes one. And Bellato gets cracked all the time and potentially doesn't have the best chin of all time. So it definitely only takes one. So when you mix all of that into the pot, I don't think you can make this guy a minus 450 favorite. It seems like an overreaction coming in off the Dana White's Contender Series. Now, I personally haven't bet the other side because Ihor is so bad at MMA. It's very tough for me to make that click. It's not an easy click, right? I always say, like, it's an easy click or a hard click. And clicking on Ihor Potieria to win the fight and putting my money down, my hard-earned money, on that guy to win a fight, it is hard, but I'm probably going to end up on something, Clint. Maybe I end up on the KO prop to make it slightly an easier click. Maybe I end up on some form of under and putting more money on it just to cover myself for the Ihor. Maybe I end up on Ihor KO 1 or 2. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to end up on some form of prop or money line on Ihor because although I think he's the much worse fighter, I can't discount his chances for a knockout at this weight class with the striking dynamic. So that's my thoughts on the fight. I think the line's wide, and I think it's wide because he's got a big win on the Dana White's Contender Series spot. I think it was he main event or was he the co-main event in that Dana White's Contender Series card? Do you remember?
I don't recall, actually. That is a good question.
He was either main or co-main. So obviously, like, there was a lot of eyes on him at that point. He got a contract. He got a finish against a big, scary-looking Russian or wherever he was from with a ginger beard. He was
the main event, yeah.
Main event, going against this undefeated Russian dude with a big ginger beard. You know how it goes, man. So I think he's overrated in that spot. Not everyone can be Peyton Talbot. Not everyone can be the next 4-weight world champion. So I don't think Bellato, even though he's coming off Contender Series, big win, big finish, I don't think he's going to be that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a long-winded way of saying that the line is wide and I'll probably find a prop or something to play on the other side.
It's pretty funny, man. I feel like we are most long-winded on the ones that end up not being a bet because there's so many different factors in it, right? Like we've got so many different things tugging us any direction. Those are the ones we go on and on about because we want to get all the thoughts out just to say nothing. I got no bet, no bet.
There's a lot of gray area in fights, man. There's so much gray area, and it's important to cover all the gray area because people always want a very confident prediction. This guy's going to win. It's black and white. That's not how fights play out. You know, there's lots of gray area, and it's important to touch on the gray area to give people a wide range of information before they're betting on it. Because we're using our hard-earned money. We have to understand that, right? And so are the viewers. So if you want half of the information, then you can go watch someone else. But you know, me and Clint, we're going to give the whole side of the coin, at least how I see it anyway.
Absolutely. And that's why this show is damn near 2 hours every time you come on. And I love every second of it. We're going to break it all down. All right, everybody. We got 168 live viewers in here. Y'all are doing awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here on Pub Sports Radio. And do me a favor and just hit that like button for me real quick. Takes you no time at all. And we'll talk about Steve Garcia and Melquizael Costa. Okay. We'll talk about this one for you while you get that done. That'll be the deal for you. My guy, Steve Garcia. James, I love the Mean Machine. I love this dude. He's so fun. 14-5, and he's just hell on wheels. 11 wins by KO, 1 loss by knockout. He was the victim of the legend Mahashat early on in his run here in the UFC. And he's been, jumping around weight classes a little bit. Seemed like he was having a bit of a tough time when they brought him in up there at 155. He just was a little too small. It seemed like he dropped down to 145, and here we are on a run. This guy's got power. He derailed my guy Chase Hooper. I was a little disappointed about that. He wrecked Jalin Nerdenbecky, and now they're giving him Costa, one of these shoot the box fighters. Definitely a fun matchup here. This one's going to be a banger. I don't think Steve Garcia is capable of being in a fight that isn't a banger. This guy gets hurt every single fight. The loss ratio here, 3 decision losses to 1 KO, is really misleading because he wobbles in every single fight. He's actually got some decent wrestling in his back pocket, and that's kind of what he does to save himself is he'll panic shoot, drag people to the ground, make it a grappling fight when he needs to recover. But you can count, even you go back to the Charlie Ontiveros fight. He got rocked 3 times in the first round. 3 separate occasions, he looked like he was doing the newborn baby giraffe leg thing where he's stumbling around the octagon. Managed to pull through and get the win. The problem for me as a gambler is I look at that and I go, how can I ever count on that kind of durability? Yeah, he's only got 1 KO loss, but that bill is coming due. He has been skating by in a lot of these situations, and just one follow-up shot could be enough to go ahead and put him down. It makes it very, very hard to put money on Steve Garcia, especially from just like a money line standpoint. Now, Costa, on the other hand, he's almost the pure opposite story, man. 20-6, 27 years old. Like I mentioned, shoot the box. He seems to be a bit more on the durable side. Now, he does have 1 loss also by KO, but that was the difference here for me is we've seen him go to absolute war with people, and he doesn't have the same wobble ability, I feel like, as Steve Garcia does. Maybe I'm judging Steve Garcia a little too harshly there, but I feel like Costa is the more durable party here. Makes his UFC debut on short notice against Thiago Moises, and he put up a hell of a fight that night, James. In the first round, he showed really, really solid first-level takedown defense. And coming in on short notice, it was just a matter of time. Thiago Moises just kind of kept chipping at him, and finally got him down, finally got him tired, finally, put him in a bad position, found the rear naked choke and tapped him out of there. But he made good in his comeback fight against Austin Lingo the next time out, where he kind of beat the guy pillar to post as a decent-sized favorite. Now he's getting the respect he deserves here in this spot. And again, I have a hard time with this fight because I rely on the durability here. I think Costa should be the favorite. He's sitting around minus 225 right now, but Steve Garcia is a dude that you can never count out of a fight. He causes a dogfight. He hits like a truck. He is going to be in there from bell to bell. I think Costa can tank damage just a little bit better than Steve Garcia can. And because of that, I'm going to pick him to go ahead and get the win. But I think we're in for violence, man. I think this sets up nicely for an under, or a fight doesn't go the distance. One of these guys is going out. Curious to hear who you think wins on this one.
I think Costa's the one that gets his hand raised. I actually think he's a good fighter. I think he's got way more tools in this fight. Something interesting. Steve Garcia may be able to get some wrestling going here. Costa, we've seen him taken down a few times. Obviously, I think he's improving. At 27 years old, I do think he's getting better. He was thrown a very, very tough matchup against Thiago Moises in his debut, I believe that was in the UFC. He got submitted there. Moises is a very, very sharp fighter. But I do think that, Steve may have some success in the wrestling. I think he's going to need to, right? Because if he doesn't, I think he's going to get eaten up on the feet. Yeah, he's got power, but man, they're both southpaw, and I think that's going to open up a lot more attacks from Costa, because Costa has way more kicks. So the calf kicks are going to be there. And I think Costa's got more tools on the feet, man. He's going to be kicking the body. He's going to be kicking the legs. He's going to be kicking the head. And he's going to be punching to all three levels as well. Whereas Garcia is going to be swinging big hooks and staying tough. But I think he's going to get eaten up. I think he's going to get chewed up. I think Costa's going to finish him. Steve doesn't really go to decision a lot. I think he's going to get I think he's going to get finished here. So I like Costa in this one. I don't have too much to say about this one. From what I can see, one guy's a much better striker than the other. And I'm not banking on Steve having much wrestling success, which means that it's going to be fun while it lasts, because, Costa's, he will have a war. He's happy to sit there and have a war with you. He did it with Lingo, even though he was on the outside at times and stuff, and he looked very good in that fight. There were still opportunities for Lingo to land. So I think Garcia may be able to make it fun for a while, but I don't think he's going to be able to last 15 minutes in there with Costa in the type of fight that I believe will play out because of their styles. So I think Costa's going to win the fight via knockout in round 2.
I'm with you. Couldn't agree more, man. I mean, bold call on the round 2. I like it. We always love the big ballsy calls here with that kind of stuff. I don't have a round for you. I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Garcia was able to hang around in this one for a bit. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 2-minute fight and it got over with early. But same prediction at the end of the day. I'm with you there on Costa by KO. All right. Moving right along, we got Joe Solecki taking on Drakkar Klose. And this is my second bet of the evening. I've only got 2 so far. I'm sure I will add more, but this will be the second one. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this one, because it's an interesting fight. This one's very, very interesting, man. Joe Solecki is a stud grappler. I mean, this kid is really, really solid on the ground. 13-3. Decent boxing. And I got to tell you, the man got a second lease on life, James, because it wasn't too long ago that the UFC tried to match this man up with the God of War, Benoit Saint-Denis. And it was only by the blessing of the MMA gods that he is still walking among us today. Benoit Saint-Denis had an ankle injury, had to pull out of that fight. And Carl Deaton fills in on short notice and just gave absolutely zero resistance to our guy, Joe Solecki. You all know how I feel about Benoit Saint-Denis, and finally people are starting to understand just how much of a force the God of War is. He would have broken poor Joe Solecki, and instead Joe got a fight of the night bonus with a round 2 sub instead of going out on a stretcher that night. So here he comes. They're matching him up again with somebody different this time around. Drakkar Klose, maybe a better matchup for him, a little bit more on the even side of things. Drakkar Klose, a guy that I've had a bit of a rocky relationship with back and forth. I was kind of a non-believer a little bit early on. One of the big reasons why I felt that way, and this was more narrative than skill set necessarily, I thought he was kind of a head case, man. He was kind of like getting kicked out of gyms and running around, didn't have a place to stay, didn't have a place to call home, didn't have a camp. The Jeremy Stephens thing happens where he gets like, he has a quick turnaround from the Beneil Dariush fight and then gets rocked by a shove. And I was ready to go all in, James. I wanted all my money, every worldly possession I own on Jeremy Stephens by knockout back in 2021, because he was making such a short turnaround. We just knew he wasn't going to be 100% after taking the bludgeoning that he did from Beneil Dariush. He takes time off, comes back, and boy, did he come back correct. He's got back-to-back wins over Brandon Jenkins and Hoffa Garcia. He actually showed really, really well against Hoffa Garcia, a guy that I've got a lot of respect for. Good cardio, good pace, good grappling. even though Drakkar Klose has a 69% takedown defense, it seems like something that he's working on. And maybe the numbers lie a little bit where he got kind of ruined early on in his career, because he held a guy like Hoffa to 3 of 11 on the takedowns and was basically beating the brakes off of him towards the end of that fight. He showed good cardio, good pressure, a no-quit attitude. He's got great boxing and decent power. He's one of these guys that'll kind of touch, and then sit when he wants to, as opposed to swinging for the fences and desperately looking for the knockout. I think that's far more dangerous than the guys who are just constantly swinging for the fences. What I see in this fight is you've got Joe Solecki, a dude who's going to look to backpack somebody. Drakkar Klose definitely gives his back up. I'm fully aware of that, but he's never been submitted. He's got good submission defense, good cardio, and he always makes his opponents work. Joe Solecki is a decent boxer with zero power. He's a non-threat when it comes to standing on the feet. If he can't submit Drakkar Klose, he's not going to win this fight. I don't believe he can out-wrestle Drakkar Klose for 15 straight minutes. Maybe he can backpack him and win 2 out of the 3 rounds, and I do think I will take on that risk that that's going to be something that could happen. But if Drakkar Klose can keep this fight at all in the striking realm, he's going to hit harder. He's the better striker. And we've seen Joe Solecki fade. He gets really, really tired down the stretch in his fights. I would not be shocked if Drakkar Klose gets him out of there in like a round 3 TKO type of situation, James. So I did lay the wood on Drakkar Klose. The line has moved against me. We've got to pick him now. I laid, I think, minus 130 on him. So hate getting the worst of the number, but I'm not too worried about it. I like my side. That's the side that I'm going to be on. And I'm ready for you to tell me how wrong I am.
I'm going to do that, bro. And the reason is I'm on my boy Joe Solecki here. So we're going head-to-head on this one. It's always fun when we go head-to-head. Look, I will just preface by saying it's a binary fight. We have a striker versus a grappler. So it's one of those ones where if Joe doesn't get his grappling going, he will lose the fight. You know, but if he gets his grappling going, he will win the fight. So I'm not going to sit here and say this is the bet of the century in a binary fight where one fighter is clearly the better striker versus grappler. But I will make the case for Joe Solecki. So when he first came into the UFC, I used to call him Joe Gracie. I don't know if you remember, but I always used to post out Joe Gracie fight week. Joe Gracie, what a great submission. And that's because his grappling is so on point, man. It's some of the most beautiful MMA grappling, different from jiu-jitsu, but his jiu-jitsu is obviously in the gi beautiful as well, but his MMA grappling is super elite. I kind of stopped calling him Joe Gracie after I saw him do nothing from guard and just kind of like close guard and just let the clock run down, and he loses the fight that way. He's very, very, what's the word? He loves just wasting time staying on his back. And I don't like that in MMA, right? So after I saw that, I was like, I can't really call this guy Joe Gracie anymore. You know, he might not be Joe Gracie. He's Joe Gracie from top position, but on bottom, he just looks like that. He looks like an average bloke. Now, I will say that most of that was coming from the Jared Gordon fight. I actually bet on Jared Gordon, so I was expecting that to be a possibility. And Jared Gordon is a very, very high-level grappler, you know? So maybe against someone else like Drakkar Klose, who I don't think is a great grappler, and we'll get into that, maybe he won't be content to stay on bottom. That was the word I was looking for, content. Maybe he won't be content to stay on bottom. Maybe he'll be able to find a sweep or some type of reversal, you know? But I think that the reason I bet on Joe Solecki in this fight is because I think he's going to find the back. When I'm watching Drakkar Klose tape, I've seen time and time again this guy gives his back. Fighters always find the way to the back of Drakkar Klose, whether it be Beneil Dariush, whether it be Lando Vannata, whether it be him being taken down multiple times by Rafa Garcia and only the referee bringing them back to the feet. If that was a different referee in there, he wouldn't have got back to the feet and he would have lost that fight. So I just see time and time again this guy has deficiencies in the grappling. So that's why I bet on Joe Solecki, because he's a pure grappler. I think if he gets the fight to the ground, I don't think Drakkar Klose is going to get back to his feet. And I think that if he does try to scramble on the takedown, I think that he could get his back taken very easily. I also think the submission is in play, but I give a lot of credence to Klose's submission defense, as we've seen time and time again, right? The guy's very hard to submit. Beneil Dariush had his back for the entire round one, standing, and he couldn't submit him. So I wouldn't be surprised if Joe gets his back and couldn't submit him. But I would kind of be surprised that Joe doesn't get his back at all once in this fight. I think he'll get his back in round one. He takes a lot of people's back, and I think he's going to be able to do it to Drakkar Klose. So I feel like he's going to win 2 out of the 3 rounds. I think he might gas in round 3, and Drakkar might start to get the better of the striking. But how I see this fight playing out is that, or the big macro on this fight to me is that Joe Solecki has big favorite upside, whereas I don't think Drakkar Klose does. I think Drakkar Klose path to victory is still going to be a close fight because I don't think the striking is such a big discrepancy. I think that he's clearly the better striker. I think he's going to win the striking, but I don't think he's going to get a finish. Drakkar Klose is not this type of guy. He's finishing anyone other than Brandon Jenkins. So I don't think he's just going to be dominating on the feet and clearly winning the fight. I think a takedown will swing a fight, whereas I don't think a couple of strikes will swing the fight from the grappling. I think Drakkar Klose will be dominated in the grappling, and I think on the feet, Solecki will lose, but he won't be dominated. So, bigger discrepancy in the grappling than it is in the striking. That's why I bet on Joe Solecki, but I will see, man. I'm happy to go head-to-head here. It's going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to be a closely contested affair either way. Unless there's a finish, I think it's a binary fight. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one. Now, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, man, I love it. And, I'm glad you brought up the fight with Beneil Dariush because that's kind of what hinges my whole argument, right? I'm going, if he can defend Beneil Dariush on his back for an entire round, I don't think he's going to get tapped by Joe Solecki. Now, like I mentioned, the caveat to my whole thing is he could do it twice. I could just lose 2 rounds to a backpack and lose this bet. But if he doesn't allow the second backpack, I think I win the fight. So we see the fight very similarly and we end up on opposite sides. You love to see it. That's the gambling game. Next fight we want to talk to you about is the return of the king himself, Cody Brundage. He takes on Zach Reese. And I am one of the absolute insane geniuses, James, that cashed a ticket. Cody Brundage, round 1, KO, TKO, or DQ in his last fight. That's right. You needed to make sure you had that DQ in there, folks. I talked literally about, I feel like the round 1 of Cody Brundage in that fight was his money line. They were giving us 20-1 on round 1, KO, TKO, or DQ. And that was literally his money line because if he didn't win that thing early, it wasn't happening. We have talked about this guy forward and backwards. I really think it's a mental game, James. I think it's a brain problem for him. He's big. He's strong. He can wrestle. He's actually got decent jiu-jitsu. He was hurting Rodolfo Vieira worse than Chris Curtis was. He can crack. This kid's got like all the pieces of what you need to be an MMA fighter. And he just can't put it together. He just falls apart. And the second he's not the hammer, he fades. He starts jumping guillotine. He puts himself in bad positions. Then he's got to work himself up out of those bad positions. And then he gets tired. And then once he's tired, he's desperate and he's jumping for a second guillotine. It's this compounding errors thing that he does in every single fight. I'm rooting for Cody Brundage. I would love to see him turn the corner and become just this warhorse of a fighter. But I think it's between his ears. I think he's going to have a hard time actually making that leap because he just can't put the pieces together. And now they're throwing him to Zach Reese, the Savage, 6-0, undefeated, coming off the Contender Series. And this guy's got all round 1 finishes. All of them. That's his entire run. And they're all, except for one, James, they're all a minute or less. Except he's got one fight where he went to the 4-minute mark. I know I'm insane. But this is exactly the kind of spot that I look at and I go, maybe we actually bet Cody Brundage one more time here. Because this kid, as impressive as he looks, only has 6 wins. No real opponents in that span. Nobody that we're overly impressed with. The Contender Series fighter who was also an undefeated prospect was far and away the best fighter record-wise that he had ever. 7 or 8 UFC fights under his belt. Some of them may not have gone his way. He might have been finished a couple of times. But he's got 3 wins under the UFC. One of them, Malkoun. Okay, maybe we won't call that a win. but he beat Trayshawn Gore. He beat Dalcha Longiambula. He found ways to win in those spots. He's got a massive experience edge. You're going to put this kid, Zach Reese, under the bright lights. You're going to put him in here with a big physical force, someone who might actually punch back a little harder than some of these cans he's been crushing has. I find it hard not to make an argument for Cody Brundage in this spot. And it looks like the line is moving that way. For everybody trying to pile in and jump on Zach Reese, fade Brundage one more time. He was like a plus 220 dog just a couple weeks ago. He's down to plus 170 now. And I would be tempted to take another finish prop, James. I'll be honest with you. Brundage inside the distance might be something that I have to look at in this spot just because we don't know what Zach Reese looks like outside the first round. And everything I've seen from him is very range game. He throws big kicks from outside, big step in knees. He's biting down on the mouthpiece and swinging overhand hooks with everything he's got. Man, if you want to play that game against Cody Brundage, it's not that crazy for me to think that Cody might be the one who lands first. I would not be shocked if Brundage just wrecks everybody's shit on Saturday and pulls off a massive upset in this spot. James, what do you think about this fight? Am I insane for wanting to touch that plus 600 Brundage by KO, TKO, or DQ yet again?
Not all, man. Like I told you in the Bellato fight, these fighters coming off the Dana White's Contender Series who get finishes, especially early finishes or dominant finishes, they're always chalked up. And we see it again. Zachary Reese, he's completely unknown. He's a massive, massive fade at this price. I don't care who speaks to me about anything, about how bad Brundage is or whatever you want to say about him. Zachary Reese is a massive fade at minus 300. It's a ridiculous price. I don't care if he goes out there and finishes him in round one. He's going to do that to a few guys. He's going to finish people in round one. We've seen time and time again, these round one fighters, if they don't get round one, then they look the underdog, right? Like Gabriel Bonfim against Nicholas Dolby. If Gabriel Bonfim would have finished Dolby in round one, and by the way, he almost did, like he was cracking that guy. If he would have finished him in round one, every single person on earth would have said that he's minus 900. He covered the line, right? But the finish didn't come, which it could have come. Like we know that fighters or fights are decided on very small margins. It could have happened. If it didn't happen, then what happens? Dolby looks like the favorite. So Zachary Reese fits the exact same mold. Yes, he might go out there and win at minus 300 and everyone backing him is going to be like, oh, look, easy bet. But if he doesn't do that, man, who knows what's going to happen? Brundage is an easy bet at these odds, man. He really is. I don't have much to say, man. You've covered it all. What do we have to say about Zachary Reese? The guy fights 1 minute every single time. He's fighting low-level competition, and he's beating them. He's getting taken down. He's getting arm bars from guard. I mean, that ain't going to run in the UFC consistently. You know, maybe he finishes Brundage, but he's going to be finished himself soon, unless he turns out to be this insane 15-minute fighter who just does the same thing as he does against these low-level fighters. In 60 seconds, he can do that for 15 minutes against high-level fighters. All right, maybe he's the truth. Maybe he's the next UFC champion. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Likely is that he's going to get finished or beat, found out at minus 300 sooner or later. And I don't want to miss the boat when that happens. I think Brundage has a good shot at doing it. He's got good power. He's a decent wrestler. We know he has good cardio. I think that, you know, outside of him doing something stupid in this fight, this line is going to look very wide. So, yeah, I think Brundage is the side easily.
All right. Glad we're on the same page. I was afraid you were going to tell me I was absolutely nuts for that one, James. I'm glad you can back me up just a little bit at least on that one, because I can already hear the keyboards going off. People are gonna have a field day with that breakdown after the run that Cody's been on, and I can't tell you how many people's parlays got busted when he got the DQ win his last time out. So be careful out there, folks. Looking for revenge on an MMA fighter when we're talking about betting. It doesn't always go so well. So be careful trying to parlay against Cody Brundage again this week. Real quick, got to pay some bills, folks. First and foremost, this is our home, Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you check them out, pubsportsradio.com. We've got tons of contests going on every single week, free giveaways. This one especially. Come sign up on Pub Sports Radio. All you do, pick your fighter, pick your round, pick your method, and we award belts for people who have good results. If you win the whole contest, it's $100. We give away a free $100 every single week, every single event, zero entry fee. Check out pubsportsradio.com. If you want to support your boy and you're not interested in, just, throwing me a tip or something, which, there's a couple of you, by the way, always appreciated. This is the way to do it. Rock some merch. It's cold, ladies and gentlemen. Come get you a hoodie. We're getting to the winter weather. It's Christmas. Get your favorite Die Hard out there. Some merch. Find my shop here on Spread Shop, Die Hard MMA podcast merch on Spread Shop if you guys want to support your boy. Next up, Spectation Sports. If you like regional scene MMA, if you want to take a look at fighters on their upward path, an alternative to something like UFC Fight Pass, this is the place to do it. They've got awesome cards. We've actually got some serious action coming up here. This FAC card and this Maverick MMA card, I just went over these like a week ago. They're fantastic. They're really, really fun. Make sure you check this out. Promo code DieHard gets you 20% off when you sign up for a subscription using Spectation Sports. Next up, we've got the Sharp app. If you guys want models, if you want methods, if you want pro bettors, if you want the whale, you can tail people. They're going to help you out on all those sports that I don't cover. They've got the best prop app in the entire world. They identify edges where you can bet them on multiple different books. They call this bad boy the Proptimizer, and people have been getting, no joke, I'm not kidding, I'm not making this up, this is not just for an advertisement. People are getting limited by using their Proptimizer on like Prize Picks and shit like that. Check out the Sharp app. We'll have a link in the description of the show below. And last but certainly not least, bet openly. If you guys, I've tried to tell everybody about it. People are resistant to trying new things. As soon as they actually try bet openly, they go, oh shit, that's freaking cool. Should have done it sooner. And you guys can be the same with that. This is peer-to-peer betting, which means 1% juice. Look at these numbers. They apparently don't have MMA ready to go for us yet. So let's go to hockey instead. No? Okay, I don't know what's going on with the app. For some reason right now, it's making me look like I'm a freaking idiot. NFL, here we go. Look at these numbers. Instead of laying juice on everything, you pay 1% if you win the bet. So obviously you don't owe juice if you've lost on your bet. The over 43 in tonight's football game between the Bears and the Vikings is plus 100 on both sides of the equation. Plus 3 spread, plus 100 on both sides of the equation. You guys are literally saving like 13% on every single bet that you make. That's better than any promotion any sports book out there is ever going to offer you. Long term, you will save money betting on this platform, and that's the cheat code as gamblers that we are looking for. So make sure if you haven't already, check it out. Sign up over at Bet Openly. You guys will not regret it. It's an awesome platform, and I can't wait for more of you to jump on and start using it with me. There we go. We're back to UFC Austin. This is Pub Sports Radio, and once again, joined by my guy, Lucrative MMA, and we are going to talk about some fights here. We got a throwback, James. We got a big-time throwback. Miesha Tate is returning to the octagon on Saturday. She takes on the Raging Panda, Julia Avila, and I had to pump the brakes. I had to pump the brakes big time on this one, James, because I've been doing this whole changing of the guard angle here in 2023, and it's actually worked out really, really well. You know, these ancient fighters, people who we love, not even ancient, you know, some of the older ones, 36, 37, they've been hanging around forever. They're all getting knocked off. The younger generation's coming through. They're taking their rightful places. We're seeing a lot of losses from people who used to be very consistent, and it's been very profitable to back these younger fighters this year especially. I thought, for some reason in my brain, Julia Avila is like a 27-year-old prospect. She's 35, man. I had to check the numbers here, and I was shocked at how old Avila is. That's kind of the age where I start going, this is you. This is the finished product. This is the fighter that we can expect you to be moving forward, because most people are not improving. If your name's not Jared Cannonier, you're not improving after the age of 35. She is just 9-2 at the age of 35. So light on experience, kind of doing the growing up in front of your eyes here in the UFC. And she's a bit older with a tough strength of schedule, man. Julia Stoliarenko, Sijara Eubanks, Gina Mazzani. It's really not a lot to write home about for somebody who, in my mind, was a young, hot prospect that we could get stoked on. Kind of has me pumping the brakes just a little bit here on Julia Avila. But I do love her aggression. She is relentless, raw aggression, steps forward, gets in the pocket, swings heavies, and she just kind of melted my girl Stoliarenko in her last fight. Got the big finish in round 3 after beating the brakes off of her and busting her face up. That really could just be enough for someone like Miesha Tate. Man, I've been down on Miesha Tate for a really long time, and I don't understand this comeback thing that she's doing. You know, she made a comeback in 2021. She takes on Marion Renault, the oldest fighter on the UFC roster, and gets a win. Hasn't done a damn thing since. Lost to Ketlin Vieira, lost to Lauren Murphy, took a grappling fight very recently, lost that one too, got submitted. I'm sorry, but the ship has sailed. I'm a huge Cupcake fan, man. She's 37 years old. She's not even that much older. She's 2 years older than Avila here in this spot, but fight miles, she's way older. She's been very reliant on her grappling essentially her entire UFC career. And that, I hate to say it, fluke win over Holly Holm deep in the 5th round. She got one shot. She got one chance to take that belt. She took it and she made good on it. And I was the biggest Cupcake fan that night. I was so happy to see her get gold wrapped around her waist. She is a veteran who, kind of like Michael Bisping, right? That really kind of deserved it all the way up until the end, but I never thought it was actually going to happen. She made it happen, man, but it was a fluke. That's never happening ever again. She doesn't like getting touched. She doesn't like getting hit in the face, and she has to rely on being more physical and being able to overpower her opponents. That's maybe something she could do here against Julia Avila. I hate that I can make an argument to potentially lose more money on Miesha Tate on Saturday, man. I don't like it because she's on my fade list. I want to bet against her. I want to take the power punches of Julia Avila and go that way. But at the end of the day, I feel like Miesha could be the bully in there. She could use her wrestling. She could take this girl down. This is such a stay away fight for me, man. I can't. I'm sorry. Good luck if anybody's putting their hard-earned money on this fight. I'm staying clear away from it. I'm going to pick Julia Avila to go ahead and get the win, but if Miesha Tate greases out a split decision, it's not going to shock me. What do you make of this one, man?
Yeah, I agree that it's a stay away fight. Prior to the fight, I thought that I might like Miesha Tate, before I watched tape. And this is why watching tape is so important, because oftentimes I'll think I'm going to bet one fighter before tape when I see the odds. And after doing my due diligence and watching these fighters, I actually bet the other side, right? So tape is so important, because if I'm changing my opinion so drastically, for those of you who don't watch tape and just wikicap, it's very important. You can listen to people you trust who watch tape, same thing, but watching tape is very important. Now, when I watched this tape of this fight, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stay away from this fight, man. I thought maybe Miesha Tate could be a good bet because she may have the grappling upside. Julia Avila has been off for 2 years. That's worth mentioning, right? She's been off for 2 years. She had a lot of trouble with her gym. I believe she was kicked out of her gym. I don't know if you can tell me the inside scoop on that. I don't know exactly what happened. It was something.
I don't have the inside scoop there. I did not know that.
Yeah, it happened a while back. It wasn't like a few months ago. This was like a year and a half ago, but it was after her fight. She got kicked out of her gym, or she had some trouble with somebody. Basically, she had a big gym issue, right? And I think she had to change gyms. I don't know exactly what happened, but that was an issue in her life. And then after that, I think she even mentioned it on one of her post-fight interviews at one point. I don't know. There was a big thing. And then she had a baby. So I don't know if you knew that. She got pregnant in the last 2 years. She's had a kid since then. So I don't know how much she's been training. I don't know how ready she is for this fight. We remember when Miesha Tate come back from having a child, she looked really good, but it really depends on the fight and the fighter, right? It can obviously impact you very negatively as a woman. That's a massive thing you have to go through. Your body goes through some insane type of thing that I'll never truly know about, right? When you have a child. So I'm not surprised if she comes back looking way worse than she ever did because of that trauma that her body's been through and that change that her body and mind has probably been through as well. Maybe she's not fully as dedicated as she once was. Now she's got a family and other things to look forward to. So it's tough for me to back Julia Avila in this spot, but she's got the power upside on the feet, and Miesha Tate's wrestling didn't look good in that Lauren Murphy fight. She had a decent showing against Ketlin Vieira. It was okay. I mean, she competed on the feet, but she got pieced up for the most of the fight. I feel like it was a close fight in terms of rounds, but over the 25 minutes, she kind of, clearly lost. This is just a big stay away fight. I mean, I'm mentioning different points on different sides to give anybody watching, to give you information about the fight, and hopefully you can use that, to benefit your bets. But me personally, all of this information I'm getting, it just tells me to stay away from the fight. So I don't have a strong opinion on who's going to win. I think either girl can win. I think Miesha Tate can win with her wrestling. Julia Avila can look terrible after pregnancy, after gym issues, after being out for 2 years. But I also think she can just piece up Miesha Tate and hurt her like 4 or 5 times and smash her face in. Because Miesha Tate's hittable and she's very tough. But Julia Avila hits hard, man. Julia Avila, I feel like Julia Avila had a lot of potential and she never realized it. And I don't think she ever will realize it. But that's fine. It is what it is. You know, things happen in life. So I think this fight could go either way. And I'm not going to be betting on this fight at all.
You know, James, I'll be honest with you. After you mentioned that, I got to tell you guys, I missed that one entirely. I did not do my stalking, and I did not realize that Julia Avila had taken a maternity leave break here on this one. And I'll be honest with you, James, I do my very best to be non-controversial, right? Like, I want to spit some hot takes every now and again, but I try not to get canceled on this show.
Do it, man. Fuck it, man. It's 2024. It's a new era, bro. Speak your mind, brother.
Yeah, that's right. No, facts are basically you don't have to prove anything these days. So I actually have what I like to affectionately refer to as the new mom fade. And now for the women out there listening, please do not get upset with me. James hit the nail on the head. I have a gorgeous, wonderful little daughter. Love my wife to death. I am not downplaying what pregnancy is whatsoever. But what we've seen in the sport of MMA is those changes that those women go through, they're incredibly difficult to come back from. And we have seen some women come back from that and become top tier fighters in the end. But that first trip back to the cage, not all of them survive it. Not all of them are the same fighter they were. Some of them have decided they never want to fight again after just one more go at it, coming back from having that first child. It changes who you are. You lose the killer instinct to some extent because you've spent the last 2 years being a nurturing mother, and now smashing someone's face in doesn't seem quite as exciting to you as it did before. Not to mention the physical changes that you go through. It takes time for the body to recover from those. And that's something that even people who are in the best of shape may not be in fighting shape the first time in the cage back from having a child. And because of that, I have made a habit of betting against women who are off their first child coming back. And that new mom fade plays in very well here on this one, James, because like you mentioned, prime Julia Avila, definitely someone who I think takes out Miesha Tate. But if you've got a hungry, motivated Miesha Tate who's going to come back in great shape, taking time off, she looks to be in fantastic shape from what we've seen online from her, taking on someone who is a new mother, who is in that transition phase, coming back for the first time, who may not have that killer instinct. It's a risky position, but I'm far more interested on the plus money on Tate, given that circumstance after we've kind of talked it through.
You got the OnlyFans fade, and now you got the new mum fade. The feminists are about to get you, boy. You better be careful, man.
They're coming after me. Now, I can't take credit for the OnlyFans fade. That one, the chat has the OnlyFans fade. I've made mention of it because people bring it up, but that I can't take credit for that one. But yeah, the moms out there are definitely going to come after me.
Yeah, the only one that don't apply to is my girl Aylin Perez, man. She keeps cashing me tickets and then twerking on her OnlyFans after, so she can do what she wants. She's the anomaly. She's like Neo.
I cannot believe Pudilova didn't sink that choke in, James. I had her inside the distance. I had the round 3 sprinkle, and she's got the neck. She's got the back. Your girl is gassed. She's got nothing left. And Pudilova couldn't get it done for me. Oh, I'm going to have nightmares about that fight for years to come. Oh, man. Now, in this next fight, James, I don't think we need to worry about the OnlyFans because I don't believe either of these fighters have one. Clay Guida, another throwback fighter, coming here on Saturday, takes on Joaquim Silva, the man that they call Neto BJJ. And I love me some Clay Guida, man. I'm a big fan of him. He's an absolute gem. It's going to be a sad day when Clay Guida does finally go ahead and hang it up because he's such a fun character. He's 41 freaking years old, man. His entire style has been dependent his entire career on being fast, on being athletic, on never gassing out. And I think that's finally something that we can see limiting just a little bit. He's starting to head the wrong direction. You know, we're seeing the chinks in the armor here for old man Clay Guida. Father Time is undefeated when it comes to MMA, man. I love everything about this guy, but the end is near, and the UFC giving him Joaquim Silva is pretty tough. Now, this guy's got 3 knockout losses. That does seem to be his thing. As he gets into absolute slugfest, he wants to just throw down with everybody in there. He got the respect of Arman Tsarukyan in that second round in his last fight, man. You see, Arman was starting to disrespect him just a little bit, thought he had this guy figured out. He cracks him with a gigantic counter left hook as he's coming in on an entry and damn near derailed the train of Arman Tsarukyan in that last fight. This man has power, big, huge power. And if you don't have the type of speed or power that it takes to knock him out, you're in trouble. Now, Vince from Hell Pichel was able to grind out a win over him a couple years ago, but he's kind of one of the few that was able to pull that off. I don't think that Neto BJJ is somebody that we need to write home about. He's not the stud of all studs. He's 34 years old himself. He is getting to the end of his run, but I can't in good conscience put money on Clay Guida at this point in his career. And the big thing that we've always mentioned about Clay Guida is that weakness to the submission. Even though he's got 16 wins by sub over his professional career, he's got 11 losses, 7 of them coming in the first round. And they call this man Neto BJJ for a reason. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we end up in a wrestling scramble or if he gets wobbled and our guy Joaquim Silva grabs the neck, James. That's going to be the prediction for me, man. I've got Silva by sub here in this fight. What are you doing?
Yeah, I can see the same happening. I don't have too much to say about this one because it's just a weird fight. I'd like to say that Neto BJJ's last fight against Arman Tsarukyan kind of proved that he will win this fight. I kind of just want to be lazy. You know, I know that's not how you break down fights, but I break down a lot of fights. Sometimes I look at a fight and go, you know what? I'm just going to be a bit lazy. I ain't going to look or think too much about it. I'll watch tape for about an hour. You know, I'll watch like 1 or 2 fights each. And I'm like, I don't really know. It's a bit of a weird one. They're both old. Maybe this could happen. Maybe that could happen. It seems to me like Neto BJJ is hard to wrestle. Arman Tsarukyan struggled, you know, consistently. Obviously, he won via wrestling, really, right? But Silva kept getting back up to his feet. He did quite well in the wrestling on a macro scale against one of the best wrestlers in the division. He did a little bit better than most people would have thought. He cracked Arman Tsarukyan bad in that fight, had him wobbly. We've never seen Arman like that before. He knocked out his opponent previous to that, Jesse Ronson. He's obviously still got power. He's obviously still got the will to fight, the will to win because of the fight against Arman. You know, the guy could have gave up multiple times in that fight and he kept coming back. And I feel like Clay Guida's been on a massive decline in the last, 5 years or so. He's still getting wins, though, because his style is very good for MMA. He's just constant, very good cardio, and he's a pressure wrestler. That's going to win you fights in MMA. But, I mean, I don't think he's going to 15-minute grapple Neto here. So, yeah, I think a knockout submission. But, honestly, I hate this fight in terms of just betting and stuff like that. Maybe a prop will stick out to me. But yeah, money line is just it's an easy pass. Clay Guida's it's not impossible for Clay to win the fight. So I don't want to be playing minus 300 or whatever Silva's at because we have seen him grappled, we have seen him taken down. It is possible that Clay Guida is just able to do what he does to every single fighter in every single one of his wins, which is just grapple him for 15 minutes. It's not impossible. So I'm not going to lay minus 300, but especially they're both old and stuff. But, man, I'm passing on this fight. Maybe a prop will stick out to me, like I say. Submission might be good because the guy's called Neto BJJ, and he just submits nobody. So he just knocks everyone out, right? I think he got a submission. The guy just knocks everyone out in the UFC, from the tape I've seen anyway. So maybe the submission is a little bit live, especially because Clay Guida loves to put his head into guillotines, and he will be shooting takedowns here. So that could be a sneaky prop, but the guy's name's Neto BJJ, so maybe it isn't sneaky.
That's where I'm sitting, man. Right. I feel like Clay Guida gets clipped and panics and takes a takedown and, probably doesn't go all the way out because he's still a tough old bastard and gets his neck snatched.
Plus 300 on Bet Online.
For a minus 350 favorite, that's not so bad.
Can you believe this, Clint? I'm looking at his record now. He's got no submissions in the UFC ever. He's never submitted anyone. That's weird.
Got to change that name, man.
Yeah. He submitted Neil Magny 2 years ago in a grappling competition. So we'll allow him to have the name for now.
He's just one of those guys that likes to work with his hands, James. That's all. I'll bet you, like, he could have grabbed a neck, but he prefers smashing skulls. So
Yeah.
can't say I blame him with some of the heat that he's out there throwing. Inside the distance, probably the way to go. If I can get around even money or something like that, that'd probably be the way I look at it.
Yeah, I feel you, bro.
All right. Next up, we got Punahele Soriano taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. Another really tough one here, James. Dustin Stoltzfus is a guy that, I'll be honest with you, I've made arguments for. I like Dustin. He's another one of these guys, Cody Brundage-esque, that has the pieces. You know what I mean? Like, he's a decent striker. He's a BJJ black belt. He's pretty tough. Like, I thought he was going to do okay. I thought he was going to kind of turn that corner and turn out to be an okay MMA fighter. Not someone that ever blew the brakes off of anybody, but pretty good. And twice he got me good. I bet him against both Rodolfo Vieira and Gerald Meerschaert, and he was in the driver's seat for both of those fights and just choked in the third round. I mean, literally and figuratively choked in the third round against both those guys. It's the gas tank. So he's tough. He is muscly. He's a decent wrestler. He's a good grappler, but he's slow as molasses on the feet. Like, when you see this guy striking, he is just so slow to reload. And every time he throws any kind of a combo, you can see him kind of just pause afterward to kind of admire his work. He's not a good striker. And that speed disadvantage is a problem. And his cardio isn't great. He puts everything into these big, powerful takedowns and big, strong movements. And if he doesn't get that sub or something early, man, in the third round, he's just not the same guy. You can see him tire out. You can see him slow down. He's exhausted. So even if he doesn't get finished, he's going to give away that third round to a lot of people. Puna, on the other hand, he's another one of these fighters that there's some question marks about him. He's 31 years old. Again, a fighter that's a little older in reality than he is in my brain. I thought he was a bit younger than that, but he's at a good gym. He's at Extreme Couture. And I kind of think he is what he is, right? He ended up getting ground out by Nick Maximov, split decision, close fight. Brutalizes Dalcha Lungiambula. If you're like a mid to low tier fighter, Dusko Todorovic, this guy's going to handle you. He's got good, solid power striking, but it's all explosion, all power. He sells out for every punch, dangerous one punch, hitter quitter type of fighter. What I have discerned is the Achilles heel of Punahele is the people who can out finesse him. I had a nice big fat bet on Roman Hopilov. A lot of people doubting that Hopilov was going to win that fight. And I felt pretty damn good about that one, James, because you get these people that are clean, slick strikers. They're not going to put too much anything, not too much mustard on any one shot. Those are the guys that Puna struggles with. Those are the guys that Puna can't hit with that one big power shot. They're just out of range, and he blows his wad trying to get in there and crack somebody. And Hopilov just played the Matador all night, and he found the finish. It was a bit of a mercy stoppage. Puna's durable as shit. He's only got one KO loss, and it was to Hopilov. And like I said, it was a bit of a referee saying, okay, that's enough, buddy. It wasn't really like he was out completely unconscious. So you can rely on the durability of Puna. He definitely has that explode and reload red line type of gas tank, forces himself mentally strong to come back through it on the other side. This is exactly the type of opponent that is tailor-made for Puna. I think Dustin's going to have success early in this fight. I think he'll get Puna to the ground. I think he'll take him down. I actually think this is maybe a better live spot than it is a pre-flop spot, because I expect Dustin to be in this fight early. But as it drags on, Puna will still have the power to explode, and Dustin will fade, and Dustin will slow down, and he is there to get hit. He's not the most durable guy in the world, and he prefers to grapple, not to strike. I think it's just a matter of time. I think Puna knocks him out. Might be round 2, round 3, rather than being like an Abus, one shot early round 1 type of spot. But I do like Puna here, James. What do you make of this fight?
Yeah, Puna's the side. He should handle business here. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the much more powerful striker, and I think he's going to put it together. Yeah. Dustin Stoltzfus gets hit a lot, and I got a good read on Puna's style. I bet on Brendan Allen against him. Brendan Allen was like even money in that spot. I bet on Nick Maximov against him. Nick Maximov was like plus 200. I bet on Nick Maximov decision. It was like plus 350. I picked him to win against Dolce, big juice line, didn't bet it. Then I also bet on Roman Kopylov against Puna, plus 160. So I think I'm undefeated on Puna fights, picked his fights quite cleanly, and I think I'm going to do it again here. I don't think it's that hard to pick this one. I think it's similar to the Dolce fight. He's a big favorite, but it's justified. The knockout's going to come at some point. I think he's going to touch the chin. I just don't think Dustin Stolfus has what it takes to keep Puna off him. Puna is going to keep coming. He does gas out, but his mindset is very strong and he doesn't quit when he's gassed out at all. We've seen that against Nick Maximov. We even see that against Roman Kopylov. He didn't quit there. He kept on going. Like you said, it was a bit of a mercy stoppage. Did get his ass beat badly there, but I mean, the guy was still trying to fight. I don't think that Dustin Stolfus is going to be able to take him down because Puna's he's a good wrestler and he's very strong. And even if he does take him down, he'll probably get back up to his feet straight away. We've not seen anybody have much grappling success on Puna outside of Nick Maximov. And even in that fight, he kept making Maximov work. He never just like laid down on the ground, ever. And he actually made that fight a split decision, even though he got grapple dominated for 15 minutes. He made it a split decision just because of how scrambly he made it while delivering damage. So I don't think Stolfus is going to have grappling success on him if Nick Maximov struggled that badly. And Dolce wasn't able to do it. And Kopylov took him down once and he got back up straight away. So if the fight's not going to be on the ground, which I don't think it is for those reasons, on the feet is one-way traffic. Puna's going to land a knockout blow, in my opinion. Probably TKO in round 1 for me.
Okay. All right. James thinks a little bit earlier. I think maybe a little bit later, but either way, it's going to be a Puna KO. We both like the side. I like it. I like when we agree. It always makes me feel better. Next up, we got Sean Brady taking on Kelvin Gastelum. What the heck am I supposed to do with this fight, James? You have got to help me out because I don't have a good read on either of these fighters. And I got to tell you, James, the last time I said I don't have a good read on this guy, and then I bet against him, was Nicholas Dalby, who broke every parlay I ever made and cost me a gigantic winning night. So if I say I don't have a good read, I think I'm probably just going to end up leaving that fight alone from now on because that was a big mistake. Could have been a gorgeous night for me. Instead, I gave some money back to the bookies, and I hate doing that. Sean Brady, I say I don't have a good read on him. Bro just keeps winning. Like he lost to Belal Muhammad, and thankfully I did cash in on that one. That's more of I'm a Belal guy than anything. I thought the line was wide. If you ever give me plus money on Belal Muhammad or anywhere near even money, I'm going to take it. Just, I think he's that guy. You know what I mean? So that was a good spot for me to be on Belal. But the rest of his career, I've had a real hard time with him. He's got such a nasty skill set, man. He's got this giant back. He looks like a freaking Ninja Turtle. He's so strong. He smothers people. He's like a true jiu-jitsu practitioner, man, where everything is position over submission, and he just suffocates you. He pushes you up against the fence, drags you to the mat. He'll drag you around the cage for 15 minutes. He's not fancy. If he doesn't get the finish, if it doesn't present itself, he has no problem grinding out a 15-minute win. He's got decent boxing. He just has no power. Like his striking is all dedicated to him getting to your hips or pushing you up against the cage where you can go to work with strong underhooks and that nasty body lock where he just drags people around on the cage. And then once he's got you off balance, he'll trip you, he'll double you. He finds a way to get you to the mat. He's so good at that. Like Mushroom making fun of me for because I'm a Philly hater saying I'm not betting on Brady because of that. I'll have you know, Mushroom, I bet on your Eagles this weekend. So cashed a ticket there on Philly. So not always hating on Philly. And I'm giving nothing but flowers to your boy, Sean Brady, here in this spot. The big thing for me is I don't have a great read on Sean. I also don't have a great read on Kelvin Gastelum. Like I know what he is. I know what he's good at, but I just always seem to be on the wrong sides of his fights. He's coming off that controversial win over my guy, Chris Curtis. And now he's dropping back down to 170. And that's always kind of been the thing for Kelvin Gastelum is he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? He's been a top tier 185er for his entire career. He is somehow just 32 years old now, still on his mission for gold, trying to find his way to the belt. But a lot of people, myself included, think that it's got to happen at 170. He's just too small at 185. He just can't make it work. And the problem for me, James, is I feel like he's one of these tweeners. I feel like he's such a skilled fighter, but he's in no man's land. He's a Kevin Lee where like he's just a little too big for 170, but he's just a little too small for 185. And because of that, he's never going to be the guy who's got gold wrapped around his waist. He's 1-5 in his last 6. Lost a split decision. I'm sorry, before the Chris Curtis. So I guess 2-5 in his last 7. Decision loss to Jared Cannonier. No shame. Got his ass whooped by Robert Whitaker. I'd say no shame, but Rob beat the brakes off of him that night. Round 1 heel hook loss to Jack Hermanson. Split decision loss against Darren Till. I almost feel like he left a piece of himself in the cage the night that he fought Israel Adesanya, and he's just never quite been able to capture that peak sense. And I thought he was losing to Chris Curtis. You know, that headbutt situation in round 2. People hate Chris Curtis, man. Like, he's become such public enemy number 1 because he like speaks his mind out there on Twitter and people just can't stand the guy. He has a legitimate point. Like, that fight was starting to turn. The tide was turning. Chris Curtis was getting his way into that fight. And then the headbutt, which was a mistake. It was an oops. It rocked him. It changed the whole course of that fight. It turns into a 29-28 for Kelvin Gastelum, which could very well have been a 29-28 for Curtis had the headbutt not taken place, or even if they just paused the fight to acknowledge the headbutt, give him time to recover. You never know. Crazy game we play, this mixed martial arts. I am not convinced that this fight's happening until the cage door freaking closes behind Kelvin Gastelum, because he has such a hard time making weight at 170 pounds. I don't know that he can physically do it. If there's ever a gym out there that was going to get him down at that weight and have him be healthy, it would be Fight Ready. And that's where he's training for this one. I believe in what they do over there. They can probably have him ready to go. But James, I'll be honest with you, man. If you look on this guy's Instagram page, if you check out Kelvin Gastelum right now, he's already got these big old dark circles under his eyes. And maybe I'm reading in like a little bit too much. I've been known to do that every once in a while. But if he's already struggling, trying to keep his weight down, if he's already sucked out in his face, and we're still a week out from the fight, I don't know if he's going to make it, man. I just don't know if he's capable of getting his body down to 170 pounds and be healthy doing it. So I'm going to lean Sean Brady here, because I think we might get a depleted Kelvin Gastelum on Saturday. Now, if KG cuts his weight cut short and comes in 3 pounds over and gets a catch weight here at 175 or at 180 instead, full sail on Kelvin Gastelum. He's probably the better fighter. But I would not be shocked if this weight cut is something that is a problem for him, and Sean Brady is able to just kind of grind him out because he doesn't have that fifth gear that he's used to having when he's up at 185. Tricky fight, James. Tricky fight. Talk to me here, man. Where are you looking on this one?
Again, like these type of fights, I don't care too much about them. I don't care about going in depth too much. When they're very volatile, like they are, there's multiple reasons why this fight is volatile. You mentioned the weight cut for Kelvin Gastelum. How is he going to look with this weight cut? I don't think he's going to look great, honestly. I know everyone's been saying he should go down for all this, for years and years, but at this point in his career, I don't think it's going to benefit him. I honestly don't. I feel like he's looked decent up at middleweight, even if he has been getting beat. He's been fighting the best of the best. He beat Chris Curtis, who's a decent fighter last time out at middleweight. I just don't really think 170 is going to be good for him, especially as the fight goes later in. I don't think his gas is going to be the same. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. And on top of that, it's a close fight in terms of they're both decent boxers. I definitely give Kelvin Gastelum the advantage there, but Brady has a big advantage in the grappling. I think Brady can get takedowns here. He's a very, very strong grappler, strong as an ox, people like to say. Kelvin Gastelum has been taken down multiple times in his career. He's struggled with takedowns multiple times in his career. I'm not surprised if that happens again here. I do lean with Brady. He's the more established guy at 170, not in the UFC, but at least at 170. I think the grappling upside is too big to ignore. Striking, it favors. I will say the striking, Bilal Muhammad beat up Brady and finished him on the feet last time. So, it's possible Kelvin just tees off on him on the feet, but Kelvin looked good in the Chris Curtis fight as well. I really think the weight cut's going to be a struggle. I think at this stage in his career moving down, I think it's going to be a negative for him. And I think Brady has too much upside in the grappling to pick against him. So I'm going to look at more tape, to be honest, because I only briefly taped this one. I watched the Chris Curtis fight, and I watched a couple of fights where Kelvin Gastelum defended takedowns. I went back and watched the Weidman fight and a couple of others. And then I watched Brady's fight with Muhammad to see the striking and one of his fight with Jake Matthews. So I want to see another fight or two to see what I really think about the grappling. Is Brady definitely going to have grappling success in this fight? How often does he go to it? I don't think he shot against Belal Muhammad. Maybe that's just because it's Belal and he's a good grappler, but I want to see if Brady's definitely going to go to the grappling, if I believe he's definitely going to shoot, if he's going to shoot consistently. I remember he didn't shoot against Jake Matthews until the last round either. So, or until round 2, he just kind of got beat up for round 1 on the feet a little bit, you know? So I want to see that aspect of the fight because I really think that's going to be the deciding factor, whether Brady pushes the grappling as much as, in my opinion, he should do to win the fight. If I get a confident outcome on that, if I believe that he's definitely going to push the grappling consistently, I might even end up with a bet on Brady. But overall, it's an easy pass for me with my current knowledge, and probably I'll just pass on this fight overall.
Yeah, I'm with you there, leaning towards the Brady side of things, and just by the numbers, Belal held Brady to 0 of 5 on takedown attempts. So he did attempt 5 takedowns against Belal. No surprise. Bilal's an incredible wrestler, and if he doesn't want to take the fight to the ground, it's probably not going there. But the fact that he at least was making those attempts, that's what I want to see. And honestly, between you and me, James, like if you just got TKO'd by Belal Muhammad and you're kind of the meme of the week because Belal doesn't knock anybody out, I would be willing to bet that he's probably shooting for his life against Kelvin Gastelum here, understanding the assignment, got to get back in the win column. And Kelvin only has a 62% takedown defense. So yeah, I'd be looking for Brady to grapple, and I'd be looking for Brady probably to have a pretty big ground advantage there.
Yeah, I need to watch that fight again. I watched that fight a while back, and I didn't think he grappled that much. You know, I thought he shot 1 or 2 measly takedowns. So I'm going to watch that fight again. I'm going to see how much he pushed it. If he was rocked before he pushed it, I need to watch that again. And thanks for letting me know he shot.
It is funny because I watched it too, and I found it very interesting. I don't recall 5 takedown attempts. Like maybe it was like a stuff and reshoot type of situation where he got credit for like 2 or 3 real quick back to back or something. So it's an interesting spot. Yeah, really weird. All right. Shout out Raymond Lucas with the $2 donation. Thank you for the dono. He says, boo this man. 7 units on Prohaska, he says.
Son of a kid! Hey, Marshall! You ever get tired of being wrong? I do! I really do, but I'm tired!
That was, man, what can I say? What can I say? The max bet record here is now 5-2 thanks to Yuri in that spot. I really thought that he was going to have more success grappling. I felt like it was a bit of an early stoppage. We've seen that guy recover and stay in the fight before. So, you know, it is what it is. I took a shot and I missed, man. It happens. I'm sorry if you tailed, but if you have tailed, you still should be up a decent chunk based on the rest of the reads this year. So hopefully that wasn't the only one that you went with me on. Next up, we're getting to the good stuff here, folks. Got just a couple fights to break down here for you. Rob Font takes on Deiveson Figueiredo. And now he calls himself the God of War, but we all know that there is only one true God of War, and his name is Benoit Saint Denis. So Deiveson Figueiredo moving up a weight class, finally making his long-awaited bantamweight debut, taking on number 8 in Rob Font. Great fight, man. Great fight. Both these guys a little bit older. Deiveson is 35. Rob Font is 36. Font is going to have a decent little height and reach advantage like he almost always does in these spots. You know, these New England cartel guys, they're durable as shit. He's got high volume. He can put up 140 significant strikes in a fight without much of a problem. We kind of saw the grappling weakness, though, in his last fight. He got exposed a bit by Corey Sandhagen. Maybe surprised him, you know, a little bit with that one, but definitely something you got to kind of scratch your head and go, is he just really that easy to take down and hold down? Deiveson Figueiredo, you know, his whole thing was, how the hell did he ever make 125 pounds. Like it never made sense. He's huge. He's so insanely well muscled. He struggled on the scale, life and death every single time. Looking at his photos online, he also out at Fight Ready with Cejudo and working over there with Neuroforce One. He looks absolutely massive, James. Huge. He's got so much muscle on his body now, just up that extra 10 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits harder and he's stronger and has more energy up a weight class after seeing the physical transformation he's gone through during this fight camp. I'm very tempted here to take the underdog in Deiveson Figueiredo. Haven't made a bet yet, but that's the way I'd be looking at this spot. You know, I've never been much of a Rob Font guy. Like, I'll be honest. I recognize the skill set. I know how talented he is. He's not a guy that you can look past, but he does always seem to be another bridesmaid, never the bride type of guy. He's a bit of a gatekeeper, right? He's going to beat the guys who aren't quite there, but you put him against somebody who's top 5, top 6, and that's when he's kind of fallen apart a little bit. Doesn't usually end up being much of a power puncher. Right after saying that, he cracks Adrian Yanez and knocks him out in round 1. But he's more of a volume guy. The only guy he really knocked out before that was Marlon Moraes, and that was more of a chin issue than it was a power concern in that particular fight. I actually think Deiveson coming up is going to probably be the stronger man. I think he can wrestle if he wants to. If they get in there and bang, you know, you go back and you watch Rob Font's fight with Pedro Munoz. One time he has ever been finished, James, it was that nasty guillotine. And Deiveson Figueiredo has a nasty guillotine on him. He has 8 wins by submission, and I believe 3 of them are round 1 subs where he jumped that gilly on people. He's got such a tight squeeze. He hurts people with the hands, gets them to shoot, or jumps in on them and finishes the fight that way. I kind of think he's going to take a page out of Corey Sandhagen and Pedro Munoz's book. I think we could see a grapple-heavy game plan from Deiveson here in this fight, and with that, I think maybe he finds a neck and snatches it somewhere. I like Deiveson Figueiredo on the money line, and I think I'm going to look for a sub prop. What about you on this one, man?
Yeah, that's not a bad call. That's kind of like a unique call, Deiveson Figueiredo submission. I like it. It's a tough fight. You know, I think that we don't know how Deiveson Figueiredo is going to look at this new weight class. He's also old. You know, how old is he? Like 35?
35. Yeah. He's still 1 year younger, though. He's the younger of the two. And he's championship caliber. That means something to me, too. I mean, he had gold wrapped around his waist. Rob never got there.
Yeah, it's true. But, you know, at this age, moving weight class, it's not great. Obviously, it's going up, not going down. But at the end of the day, the guy's a 125er. He's fighting a 135 late into his career. I don't think we're going to see this rejuvenated Deiveson Figueiredo at 135, right? We might do, but he's 35 years old. I don't think he's going to have enough of a massive run at bantamweight. Whereas Rob Font, he's still doing very well at this weight class. He got dominated last fight, and he always has trouble with the grappling. You know, we know that. But I don't think Figgy's going to shoot many takedowns here. He doesn't shoot many takedowns in general. I don't think he's like I reckon he'll get a couple of takedowns, right? Because we saw in the Brandon Moreno fights, he got multiple takedowns every fight, but he doesn't shoot that many takedowns over 15 minutes. And so I don't think he's going to have like a 15-minute grappling clinic here. I think for the most part, he'll shoot a couple of takedowns, but I think it's going to be a striking fight for the most part. I don't know who's going to win that. I mean, Rob Font is clearly, you know, he's bigger, he's longer, he's got better boxing, he's got better straight shots, he's got better hooks, he's got better boxing in general, but Figueiredo has that power, man. He has that equalizer. And I think up at 135, he's still going to have it. I think he may have it even more. Rob Font has a weird chin. The guy never gets knocked out, but the guy always gets wobbled. He's been wobbled in many, many fights now. I was surprised that Corey Sandhagen didn't wobble him, but we know he just wanted to grapple for 25 minutes, whether it was because he broke his arm or hand or whatever injury he said, or just he felt it was a least path of resistance. Whatever the truth is, maybe it's a mixture of both. He grappled him, and we didn't get to see Rob Font's potential poor chin. I think Figueiredo can definitely win rounds on power here. I think he can have big moment upside. It's a tough fight for me because I don't really like a late weight class move. I feel like Figgy's been on a decline for a little while. I cashed many times on Brandon Moreno against him. In the second fight and the last fight, the only 2 fights that Brandon Moreno won out of 4, I bet on Brandon Moreno. The other 2 fights where he didn't win, I didn't bet on him. So I read the lines and the market, and Figgy's declined quite perfectly. He got beat up badly in that last fight against Brandon Moreno. It was the most embarrassing loss of them all. He basically got dominated for 3 rounds, and then he got finished. It was a very, very bad look. Could say it was down to the weight class. We don't know how he's going to perform. Rob Font is a very, very good fighter. You know, Rob Font is very proven at 135. So it's a tough fight for me to call. You know, I was kind of annoyed because I would definitely be betting Figgy at big plus money if the line continued to get wider and wider. It was getting wider and wider. Rob Font was up almost minus 190, and then a big bomb came back on Figgy, and now Rob Font's back down to minus 140, right? So I suspect there to be some more Font love, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I'll probably pass on the fight overall. Maybe you look into a prop. Submission is a good play, to be honest, because Rob Font
I'm betting that.
Yeah, it's not bad. I looked at it when you said it, and it was plus 600 on Bet Online. We're probably getting plus 800 on other soft bookies. So, man, that's almost an auto play at plus 800. No, I'm not going to lie, because Club and Sub is live. And, you know, he's always live for a submission figurator. So, man, I love this fight. I really love this fight. I don't have a strong opinion on who's going to win, as you can tell by my breakdown. I'll go with Figueiredo. You know, I feel like he's probably decided plus money just because he has the big moment upside and the grappling upside. So I'll go with Figgy, but I'm not confident in who's going to win, honestly.
Okay. Well, I'll be honest with you, James. I think the number one, and I can't say fighter specifically, I guess, but the one spot in this world that I've made the most money betting was the Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno trilogy. Like you said that you read the tea leaves well on that one. I could not believe just how well I did on that particular trilogy. I called every single fight almost to a T. You know, the first fight, I laid big wood on Davison Figueiredo, and I got out with my skin. You know, that draw was something that was terrifying for me because I thought Brandon Moreno might have won that fight, but it was very close, and 300 was the wrong number, quite obviously. In the rematch, I bet Moreno by sub, and I hit the round 3 sprinkle. I mean, I called both the round and the finish methodology on that one. I also bet Brandon Moreno and the over in the third fight. And then in the fourth fight, I called the TKO. I don't think I hit the round 3, but I bet the TKO on that one as well. So like I went just line for line and got every single one correctly here. And I do apologize on the third fight. I bet the over 2.5 is what I did. I didn't pick a side. I just bet the over, knowing it was going to go long on that one. So even when I wasn't sure who was going to win the fight, I found a way to make money on that one. I've read those two fighters exceptionally well. And I'll be honest with you, man, I know this is a lot of speculation and it's hard to bake that into a betting line, but in that final fight with Brandon Moreno, I think Davison was just exhausted. Like he wanted nothing to do with Brandon Moreno. He did everything he could to get a different name, to get a different fight. He didn't want to step back in the cage with that man. He was trying to take fights in different weight classes. He wanted different opponents. He didn't want to give him the rematch after getting the belt because he was so done with this guy that just wouldn't get off him. No matter how hard he hit him, no matter what he did, this guy wouldn't go away. And he had a rough weight cut. And you could just see from the opening bell in that final fight that Davison was not locked in the way he had been in previous fights. And for me, this is a new lease on life. He finally gets away from his boogeyman. He doesn't have a tough weight cut. He's got Henry in his corner. I actually think, and I'm with you, I don't like the late career weight jumps. Up is better than down is, though. And I actually think we might see a rejuvenated Davison Figueiredo because he doesn't have to deal with his personal boogeyman, Brandon Moreno, standing across the cage from him. So I missed the good number. I don't think that's going to stop me. I'm going to find my way on to Davison Figueiredo, and of course, we're going to be sprinkling that sub prop because how do you call something like that and then not bet it? I'm going to have to. All right, folks.
That's something definitely worth mentioning in this fight that you kind of just touched upon is that for the first time in many years and 4 fights, Davison Figueiredo will not be fighting Brandon Moreno. So I think that's going to play into his favor here because fighting the same guy over and over again, especially someone like Brandon Moreno, who's finished you twice now, as you said, can be exhausting, especially with the weight cut. So I do think that's a very important part of this fight, is that he's not fighting Brandon Moreno. This is a new fighter, a new test, a new weight class. I don't know how that's going to go, but it's still an important factor, whether it's negative or positive for him. Likely it's going to be positive.
For his mental state, I think it's going to be so much better. He's going to feel free coming into this fight. And I think a free Figueiredo is a dangerous Figueiredo. I have to apologize to everybody. The Vikings game has started. If you hear anything in the background, it's just my wife being psychotic, screaming from the other room, because she is far more active during the Vikings games than even I am. You guys would be surprised. I take my shirt off and scream after winning a bet. She basically redlines emotion from opening kickoff to close. I love it. It's hilarious. She actually, James, she's so superstitious about the Vikings that I took a bathroom break at one point a couple weeks ago, and they started doing really well while I was in the bathroom. She made me go sit on the toilet for the fourth quarter of the game because that's what did it. They were doing well because I was in the bathroom. So she forced me and locked me in the bathroom for the end of the game. That's the kind of woman we're dealing with here, folks. So I apologize if there's any background noise. God love her. Let's get through these last couple of fights so I can watch my boys play. We have got Jalin Turner taking on Bobby King Green. And James, you've kept a couple of them short. It's my turn, baby. I'm going to keep this one short. I'm Jalin Turner all day, every which way until Sunday. This kid has been my guy. He's been a stud. I've got plus money on him. I've got even money on him. I've bet him every step of the way. I still cannot believe that Dan Hooker is such a BMF that he was able to break his arm in the first round and come back and almost finish the guy that did that to him. Unreal toughness from Dan Hooker in that spot. Lesser men would have been finished by Jalin Turner in that fight. So I love this guy. The fact that he's off 2 back-to-back close splits against contender level opposition, not a problem for me. I think he steamrolls Bobby. Bobby's another bit of a gatekeeper type. Anytime he gets that step up in competition, guys that are real true contenders or freak athletes, that's when he falls short. I think Jalin Turner finishes Bobby Green on Saturday. James, what about you?
Yeah, I haven't actually looked into this one, man. I'm sorry this fight got made a couple of days ago, so I didn't actually watch Jalin Turner tape, but I know these fighters very well. I know these fighters very well. I will go back and watch some Jalin Turner tape. The guy don't win a decision. I will say that, right? Is this a 5-round fight, of course, right? Yeah. No, actually,
co-main event, so it'll be a 3-round.
Yeah. Sorry, it's 3-round fight. 3-round fight. Was Bobby the main event? It was with Hooker, right?
You know, yes, because they scrambled and made Tsarukyan versus Dariush in the main event instead, which is kind of another weird scrambled last-minute situation. So Bobby Green training for a 25-minute fight is now the co-main event in a 3-rounder.
Yeah, I feel like it might be better for Bobby in a 5-rounder because I just think Jalin brings so much hell in the first 2 rounds. Yeah, he probably finishes Bobby.
Jalen's a 3-round fighter. Bobby is a 5-round fighter. I mean, it's that simple to me. I'm right there with you. Completely agree.
It's just like Bobby does well with evading damage. It's funny because like he gets kicked in the body, like the Fiziev fight, and just acts like he didn't get kicked in the body, but he did get kicked in the body. You know, he's just like, oh no, it doesn't hurt, but like the guy's just getting his insides tore apart. That Fiziev fight was a crazy watch. I bet on him in that spot, and I was like, Bobby, like, all right, it looks good, you know, but you're getting your insides tore apart and you're just saying it doesn't hurt. The judges are not going to believe you. The first couple times they believe you, right? But after it happens like 15 times in a row, you're getting booted in the stomach and then you're just like, no, you didn't do anything. It didn't hurt. No, like, come on, we can see it. We can hear it landing. So I think Turner's going to have success with the body kicks here. You know, I know Turner has crazy body kicks, but Bobby's very tough, man. It's very tough. You know, Drew Dober knocked him out. It's an interesting fight. I'm going to watch the tape again. I don't have too much to say about it, Clint. I don't want to lead people down false pretenses when I haven't done my due diligence, you know, because I think there's a few key things I want to see. And mainly that is what type of storm Turner will bring and how Bobby will react to that storm, because that's going to be the whole fight, right? How he's going to react to that storm. I'm definitely leaning Turner as the favorite, though, you know, pre-tape and post-tape.
Completely
I'm pretty
agree.
sure I take the favorite as well.
Yep. I think Turner's a rightful favorite in this spot, man. And I just don't think the fight will be long enough. He's not going to come back with the kind of fury that Dan Hooker did. I don't think he's going to TKO someone like Turner. He might make it close late in the fight, but I think Turner hangs on it and doesn't quite get out of there. So even if it does happen to go a decision, I'd be worried it was like a 10-8 round 1 and then a Turner round 2 and a Bobby Green round 3 type of situation. But I digress. I got Turner. I like Turner. Main event time, everybody. We have got Beneil Dariush filling in here, taking on Arman Tsarukyan. We talked a little bit about both these guys earlier in the evening, and this is a real interesting fight. I mean, I feel for Beneil Dariush, man. I really do. He went on this ridiculous run. He really earned a title shot. He really earned his opportunity. And then he just gets melted by our guy, Charlie Oliveira. And man, when they made that fight, I told everybody, I tried to talk to everybody I could. I was like, look, you guys are definitely swinging too far on the pendulum for recency bias, forgetting what Charlie is capable of. Benny is ever so slightly chinny, man. If he can protect his chin, he's one of the most well-rounded, deadliest fighters on planet Earth. But you can bank this guy. He's got that weakness on the jaw, and you can just get him out of there sometimes if you want to. And now he's taken on Arman Tsarukyan. I've talked about the changing of the guard, James, and this is exactly the kind of spot that I'm looking at. Tsarukyan might be a decent-sized favorite here in this spot, but I do expect that Benny, coming off of the KO loss, taking on a young grappler, someone who's just this incredible offensive wrestler, this crazy scrambler that was able to keep up with a guy like Gamrot, I think he'll be able to handle the wrestling. And even if Benny forces this guy to stand with him, I know it was Neto BJJ. I know he's a journeyman. I know he's not a championship caliber fighter, but this guy cracked him with elbows and had him hurt badly. He got him to the ground and TKO'd him and finished him as soon as he had the chance to. He's not someone you can just look by. And I know a lot of people are kind of jumping on Benny to have new life and yet another run. And I kind of feel like his another run was his last chance last time. I almost feel like this is going to be that falling action downslide of his career. He's still one of the most skilled fighters out there. I'm not counting Benny out, but I got to pick Arman Tsarukyan to kind of continue his journey and be that next young.
Yeah, I think you pick Arman in terms of like who you think is going to win the fight and who you think should be favored. But I think the line is wide, man. I mean, Benny is again disrespected on the money line at plus 240. I think it's come down a little bit now. I'm going to look at it right now. Live odds for you. Plus 235. It's not really come down a lot. It's wide, man. It's wide. Like it's a 5-round fight. So I obviously think that favors Arman Tsarukyan. We've seen Benny get tired in fights, but Benny pushes through well. He pushes through very well. It seems like he's actually taking training a little bit more seriously now from what I've seen on social media in terms of his cardio. So maybe his cardio is even better. He knows he's in a 5-round fight here. So, maybe his cardio is better for that regard. I don't see how Arman Tsarukyan looks minus 300 in this fight. How does he look minus 300? If he catches Benny on the chin, because Benny's got a dodgy chin. Yeah, I guess that can happen. Then maybe he looks fine as 300 because he knocks him out. But he ain't going to grapple Beneil Dariush for the first 3 rounds. Beneil's scrambles are elite. Mm-hmm. Elite. He didn't grapple Gamrot. He didn't really grapple Gamrot. I know Gamrot was the one trying to grapple him, but he even struggled with Silva, like grappling him consistently for 3 rounds. Benny is a much tougher matchup than Silva. Much, much tougher matchup than Silva. Benny is the better striker here. Beneil Dariush is a better striker than Arman Tsarukyan, and I don't think Tsarukyan's going to have grappling success. Instantly, that means he shouldn't be plus 235. I think the reason that Arman Tsarukyan probably wins the fight, if you're picking an outright winner, is because he's younger. He's got the momentum upside. He's improved drastically since his UFC debut, meaning that his striking has improved, meaning that his wrestling has improved. He's just getting better and better, I believe. I know he had a quote-unquote not better performance last time out, but, you can't just keep... fighting's not linear. You're not just going to keep looking better each time out. Sometimes there's going to be a fight where you might get rocked or something, so you don't look great. But I think that Arman Tsarukyan, we saw him fight against Islam Makhachev. He's an elite fighter. He's a very elite fighter. He's one of the only ones who can give Islam some trouble. But I just think that the line is wide. Like, is he really going to have grappling success over 5 rounds against Benny? No. What tape have we ever seen from Benny that says he's going to get grinded out by Arman Tsarukyan? We've never, ever seen it. Gamrot couldn't do it. Carlos Diego Ferreira couldn't do it. No one's been able to just grapple fuck Benny. And Arman ain't going to be able to do it either. So I think the fight's going to be on the feet, and I think Benny's a better striker. So yeah, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think the line's wide. 5 rounds favors Tsarukyan because I don't think Benny's chin is good. I've never thought it's good. He gets rocked in multiple fights. He got finished last fight via knockout. He almost got finished by Drakkar Klose. I mean, who's Drakkar Klose compared to Benny? You know what I mean? They're not on the same level. They're not on the same planet. And he almost got finished by him. He got finished by Alexander Hernandez, who's not even in the same galaxy, right? So his chin is a massive, massive concern. And I think over 5 rounds, I think Arman will probably find the chin. And pace, pressure, tenacity, cardio all goes to Arman. But I'm betting Benny here, man. I'm betting Benny. Benny's my guy. Benny's won me in massive amounts of money. And I think the line is wide. And the name of the game is to bet on lines that you think are inaccurate. And I think this line is inaccurate. So I'm betting on Beneil Dariush this weekend. Once again.
I respect it, James. I respect it. If anyone's got the balls to take that big old bet on Benny and ride him to the bank, you go for it. That's not been me, so I'm not going to try and jump on, in a spot where I might be a little late to the party. I would be more looking personally at sprinkling like the 3, 4, and 5 for Arman. Looking for that tired, gassy, chinny, late finish type of situation where he puts it all together and outlasts the veteran. That's maybe the way that I would be more looking at things. But I definitely respect the dog play for sure. Benny could upset the apple cart here in a big, big way. Folks, that is the 2-hour mark. My Vikings are on, and the Bears have already missed a field goal. So I like that. I'm going to go ahead and get my ass out there, eat some dinner, watch my boys play. James, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast today. We broke these fights down, gave a lot of really good information for the people. I hope that helps out informationally for people to make good, intelligent bets on Saturday. My friend, where can they find you? Where can they support you or find more of your content if that's what they're looking for?
Yeah, man, it's been a good year. I've had fun doing it. I think we did a podcast earlier this year. So we got 2 in this year. Nice, bro. Looking forward to doing some more next year. Absolutely. Congratulations on your year, first of all, man. I know you put a lot of work into this. You put a lot of work into the content. You grind tape every single week. I know personally how much of a grind that is. And anybody who is getting triple-digit figures, which you're right there, you will finish over plus 100. That is an amazing feat. No one can say anything after hitting a plus 100 unit year, so whether you're there now or a couple of units off, first of all, congratulations. Any one of my fellow gamblers who's hitting those type of figures in the MMA market per year, they've done amazing. You've done your job for this year, man. So shout out to you, first of all. And to answer your question, if you want to find me, Lucrative MMA Betting, it's not hard. My YouTube channel, give out lots of free information. Twitter, give out lots of free information. Website, I have a paid service if you want to sign up and get all the official picks. Up to you. We're going to make money either way. Thanks, everybody, for watching. The last thing I want to say is shout out to everyone in the chat, because if there was no chat, if no one's watching, there ain't going to be no podcast. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Hopefully, I can help you make some money this weekend and the continuous weekends with all the content I put out, man. Clint, thanks for having me on. Let's cash these tickets.
Thank you, my friend. Pleasure having you. We will definitely do it again next year. And you said it best. Without the chat, we are nothing. So thank you. Thank you, people, all for being here, hanging out, listening, watching. Good luck on all of your degenerate action. And, of course, as always, until next time, let's roll, baby.